Hi, this is Greg once again with the Center Lines. Today I'm going to be doing a review of this 2019 Infiniti QX80. And on initial look, I think on the outside they did a really good job with making this thing look appealing. This front grille looks awesome. The headlights look great. I think the big wheels look good, the running board. This right here is completely fake and looks the same as with a Nissan Armada, and but looks are very similar to the Nissan Armada. Obviously it's the luxury version of the Armada. It's interesting how far out this bumper sticks back here, and a couple things to note. I think the outside looks great. LED tail lights, turn signals down there at the bottom. Outside looks wonderful. And one thing that I thought was kind of nice is how they blacked out this front A-pillar, so it just kind of gives it a nice look. So one thing I do want to point out here in the back, so is the interior as nice as the outside. Automatic tailgate, awesome. So all I have back here is a gym bag and my backpack for work. This is a huge SUV, and look at the size. It's just got small room back here. I'm not really impressed with that. And take a look how long it takes just to fold the seat down. It's got an electric seat, but it's like sitting here forever just trying to get this thing down. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I am impressed definitely with the outside of this vehicle, and I do like how the inside of this vehicle looks. I'm just not very impressed with the functionality of it, which I'll cover here in just a moment. Lots of room here in the back, plenty of space. I mean, this is probably the largest vehicle in its segment in terms of space. So in terms of space, this thing knocked it out of the park. In terms of the way it looks, I think it knocked it out of the park in terms of the outside. Let's step on the inside though and see if it's the same. When I get in this car, first of all, I think it looks good. I mean, I think the leather looks nice. It looks like it has a lot of soft touch material. But then you come to this instrument cluster. I am just not impressed with this instrument cluster at all. This is a luxury vehicle and it looks like a very basic instrument cluster. I think the steering wheel looks nice, but once you start touching the buttons, to me, they feel really cheap. This wood or fake wood steering wheel doesn't feel special, and I'm just not impressed. I am listening and watching reviews on the QX80, and it seems like everyone's afraid to say the truth of what it is. I do hear them say, they just kind of briefly mention it. Hey, this is dated. Look at this start button. This is a luxury vehicle, cost over $70,000, and it looks like a basic start button you can get on an entry-level car. Just not impressed with that. Look at this center steering, or look at the instrument cluster. Look at the digital display in the center that is just not, I mean, it's just outdated. It's like from the early 2000s. Watch when I put it into drive. Look at the pixels on the D. I mean, seriously, if you're spending over $70,000, wouldn't you want something just to kind of pop and be special? I'm just not impressed with that at all. As I look over here, what's very not impressing at all is, I mean, I think this looks great. I think the center thing looks great. I mean, the watch, I mean, the clock there, of course, the analog clock. To be honest, it's almost bordering on gimmicky now, because all it is a clock, and that's it, an analog clock to make you say, hey, I got a luxury vehicle. But this is so outdated, this 8-inch screen. I mean, it looks like, I'm not even kidding you, it looks like 2004. Lexuses have this type of setup from 2004. So when I was first going to be driving this vehicle for a few days, I was quite excited. I thought, oh gosh, I get to drive an Infiniti. I used to really want those Infinitis when they came out, the M35s, and I mean, they basically had the similar type of setup, and that's like 15 years ago. I can't believe how it seems like Infiniti has cut corners. And this vehicle, when I drive it, I'll cover that I guess a little later, but there's nothing special about this vehicle. It feels exactly like a 2005, 2004 Ford Expedition or a Chevy Tahoe. So if that's the case, why not just buy one of those? Especially for people that are in rural areas like I am, where you don't even have an Infiniti dealer 2 hours away. So it's just kind of interesting how they made it, tried to make it look like it was nice. Look at that gap right there. Huge gap on the door. This right here, I mean, it's supposed to be soft material, and it is leather and it is soft. What this reminds me of is when you go and you're walking through a store and you see a very nice futon, you're thinking, oh man, that looks nice, and then you sit on it and it just feels cheap, and you're like, oh geez, this does not feel anything like what it looks like. And so to me, it all just kind of feels gimmicky. Look at the gear shift. It looks cool, but it looks like a basic vehicle that you could buy that's not in the luxury segment. Shift it, it's like a hard shift. It's nothing special, nothing smooth. Look at the camera. The camera is just not even, there's cameras all around this vehicle, but I mean, and I'm not one that needs to have high definition or anything like that, but this is really behind it compared to everyone else. This particular vehicle just has the heated seats, so it doesn't have the heating and cooling. And then here's the other thing about a luxury vehicle. I just don't get it. This thing look at the center console move here. I don't know if you can see it, but I mean, this thing is cheap. Look at this right here. This right here, I mean, this is cheap. And seriously, can you get a smaller sunroof in this vehicle? I mean, this is the biggest sunroof or vehicle in its segment, and it has a basic standard sunroof from, like, I don't know, the early 2000s. It does not even cover any panoramic sunroof like so many of the vehicles these days have. So from a standpoint of Infiniti, I was quite just let down. I just thought this was going to be something special. Look at this blinker. This blinker feels like something, again, from 2000s. It's huge. Look at it just wobble around. It's not even anything nice and tight. Look at that. And so, I mean, I own a BMW, and I was anticipating that this would be something special, being in an Infiniti, and not basically a Nissan with Infiniti badging. So, just not really impressed. I also wanted to show how outdated this 2019 infotainment system is, and the navigation system. I mean, your cell phone does better than this. Put it in drive. This thing isn't even smooth. If you watch the screen, it just chop. It's like chops through where you're going. It is not a smooth transition. So just very impressive, and on the negative side, in fact, that they would put this in a $70,000 vehicle, $70,000 vehicle, and think that you're just gonna think it's awesome. I'm quite impressed that they think that that's gonna happen. And I love Infiniti. I just don't understand why this vehicle will tow, what, 8,500 pounds. And I think really it's basically a towing vehicle, and it looks really nice on the outside. And if you're buying it for space on the inside, maybe that's the other thing. But outside of that, there's no like big luxury components to it. You could buy my 2016 Tundra drove smoother and nicer than this does. This has lots of power, but again, it just feels like an old Expedition. So, just not impressed. One more thing, you'd think that this would have even a powered sunroof thing, but it's not even powered there. You have to move it back with your hand. I mean, it's not a big deal, but seriously, again, in this segment, how can there be cutting so many corners and just making you think that this thing is supposed to be something amazing? I really do not like how these buttons feel, and they just feel cheap. I mean, look at that. It's not even tight. It's just kind of loose. It's just kind of not even. It doesn't have any nice feeling in it. So, vehicle out on a test drive, it just feels like a big truck. You put your foot in it, it does take off. It is a gas hog. It gets like 13 to 17 miles per gallon, but it doesn't feel tight. It doesn't feel tight in the turning and the steering. When I say not tight, look at the steering. I mean, there's lots of wiggling, lots of movement, and it just doesn't feel like a tight suspension. I know it's a big truck, so that's part of it, but it should be a luxury big truck. It has no feel like that, unfortunately. As I use the blinker to turn, it just feels cheap. It just feels like an older truck from the 2000s. I wanted to show again how the navigation works. Look how choppy that is. Also, I was trying to change settings on this thing, and I have a BMW, so I normally just have my hand resting in the center console area, and I use the controls for the iDrive. And with this, I have to reach my hand up and it's not as safe because I'm like trying to reach up as opposed to just sitting there and controlling and being able to still kind of basically keep my eyes on the road. It's just so much different and just not impressed. See how choppy that is? Also, again, very disappointed with how boring the cluster is, as well as how dated that center is. I just can't get over that D, the pixeled D, and the pixeled, center screen there. So to wind down on this review, I mean, I think it looks awesome from the outside. Huge wheels, huge grille, the lights look amazing. They have like automatic brights, but outside of that, and maybe cameras around it, even though the cameras aren't nice, there's just not a lot of like luxury high-end features. So, I mean, it looks nice, it's gonna tow nice, but it doesn't have those luxury features that you're hoping. I hope this review helps a little bit. As I was looking at the reviews, I kept hearing people say that the infotainment system was outdated, but they didn't really spend a whole lot of time on it. They're like, yeah, it's kind of outdated. It's not kind of outdated, it's really outdated, and not something I would want to buy for my vehicle. I think it looks super awesome on the outside. It even looks nice on the inside, but it is, once you look a little bit closer, there's a lot of just gimmicky feel to it. Loose knobs and loose buttons, and buttons that just don't feel very good. And I just think Infiniti missed the boat here. There's supposed to be something special. You could get just a nice vehicle and a nice truck, a nice Toyota truck or a nice Ford truck, and buy even a mid-level trim, and it'd feel nicer than this. So I think they missed the boat. I think they could have really knocked it out of the park, and I think they're gonna have to make a change if they want to keep up with what's happening out there in this segment. Anyway, I hope you liked the review.